Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Can I ask you to take your seats, please? We're about to get started, if you wouldn't mind. And I'm going to say this loud because everyone wants to wear their headsets. They're not just here for translation. They're here so that you can hear everything. If you're close enough to the front, perhaps you can do without the headset, but I'm advised that anyone from the middle on back will need the headset if they are to hear. The other thing one could do, if this was a pop concert, we'd ask you all to come down to the front. But it's not. Welcome to the IPI World Congress for 2019. My name is Richard Gisbert. I've been asked to just see us through this opening event, to traffic cop some of our speakers today. I work with Al Jazeera on a program called The Listening Post. We cover the media, so we don't cover the news. We cover the way the news is covered. And as you can imagine, many of the topics, issues, and controversies that we're dealing with at this conference are the kinds of stories that we've been doing on The Listening Post for the last 12 years. I think you're going to find that the speakers gathered by Milica and her team will have some compelling stories to tell about media in 2019. We have 200 participants at this conference today. 40 countries are represented, and we're going to kick it off in a matter of seconds. Just to let you know, the first town hall meeting and panel discussion that we're going to have is going to be about a half hour from now. We're running slightly behind schedule. That'll start, and the topic, the theme is Stronger Together, How the Press and the Public Can Defend Independent Media in 2019. Before we get to that and our panelists, we're going to have brief remarks from 5 speakers. And to get us started is the Director General of the United Nations Office here in Geneva, Michael Mueller. Mr. Mueller.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, a great pleasure to welcome all of you to the Palais des Nations here in Geneva. And let me first of all thank everyone involved in bringing us together today. I would like to start by congratulating you on assembling such a diverse and distinguished group. You may be coming from all over the world, but you are united by a shared sense of purpose, by unwavering commitment to the freedom of expression. And I hope you will feel right at home here in Geneva, a city who shares these values, a city known as the humanitarian capital of the world, the capital of peace, and the capital of human rights. It is also the European home of our United Nations, and I am confident that today will serve to deepen our partnership, a partnership that not only has a long history, but that is very much alive and active. Just think of the over 200 journalists accredited here to the Palais, whose work is an invaluable element in our multilateral universe. We all know we're coming together at a difficult time, a time in which the freedom of expression, whether on TV, radio, in print, or across the internet, is under assault. Civic space is shrinking worldwide at an alarming rate. In just over a decade, more than 1,000 journalists have been killed while carrying out their indispensable work. And 9 out of 10 cases are unresolved, with no one held accountable. Just this month, Ali Sher Raipar and Malik Amanullah Khan were killed in Pakistan. Across the world, many thousands more are attacked, harassed, detained or imprisoned on spurious charges without due process. The United Nations has repeatedly condemned these outrageous acts, and I reiterate this condemnation. Those responsible must be brought to justice to counter this growing threat to democracy. The United Nations Action Plan on the safety of journalists and the issue of impunity is our system-wide strategy to support the environment journalists need to perform their vital work. When journalists are targeted, society as a whole pays a price. Media and the press, the famous Fourth Estate, have 3 key roles, as far as I'm concerned: to inform, to hold power to account, and to educate. A free press, a vibrant media landscape, they are what helps democracy flourish. And we need you more than ever, and I want to add, we need you to do more. When media comes up short, it opens the door to misinformation, to ignorance, to disillusionment, and to demagoguery. When it comes up short, power goes unchecked. And when it comes up short, the public sphere fragments. Constructive journalism is the most convincing answer I've heard yet to live up to this responsibility. How to react to unreason with reason and absolute objectivity. how to react to constant commotion and hysteria with a solid and thorough craft of reporting informed by verified facts. How to react to growing polarization and partisanship by putting oneself in the other's shoes and by taking arguments and counter-arguments seriously. And how do we react to the crisis of trust? By exploring solutions. That is constructive journalism. It is not about positive, upbeat news. It's not about seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. Rather, it's about reporting solutions to start a debate on what can be done. You're not supposed to be activists, of course, but what you can do is activate citizens to take action. There are journalists the world over whose courage and determination are an inspiration to us all. I'm thinking here of this year's UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize Award winners, Kiaso U and Wallon. And I'm thinking of this year's IPI IMS Award winners who I believe are with us today, Cyril Almeida and the Egyptian news website, Mada Masr. It is to support the invaluable work that you are doing that you and Geneva and the European Broadcasting Union are deepening their decades-old cooperation and partnership. It's a win-win situation in the best sense of the word. Together, we are multiplying our reach and ability to deliver on the promise of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And together we can stand against hate speech, ignorance and disinformation. Together we are promoting democracy, trust and the freedom of expression. Which brings me back to today's event, whose theme is building alliances for independent media. And the UN is very much proud to be part of your alliance. Thank you again for being here, and I wish you every success in your discussions over the next couple of days. Thank you.
Our next speaker is the chair of the executive board of the IPI, Markus Spillmann.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muller, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends. Press Institute, I warmly welcome you here in Geneva. Building alliances for independent media will be the scope of this year's World Conference. In close cooperation with the European Broadcasting Union, the UN and our conference partners, we will focus on challenges that today's journalism is facing. I hope that the discussions and insights will be fruitful for all of you. Enjoy the debates and the program and spend also some time to meet old friends and make new ones. The venue here at the Palais des Nations and tomorrow at the EBU provides us with an excellent atmosphere. But let me highlight for a minute why we are here too. In doing so, let us think for a minute of those who are not here and why. To those who are not able to participate in enlightening debates, to enjoy the comfort of a nice conference hotel, to watch the spectacular scenery of the Lake of Geneva and the snow-covered Mont Blanc. Because they are not allowed to travel, like our board member and friend Kadi Gürsel in Turkey, because they are still imprisoned, like Mahmoud Hussein of Al Jazeera in Egypt, or they are murdered, like Ahmed Hussein Suale of Ghana, who was shot dead on January 16. Dear friends, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Journalism and journalists are under attack, globally more than ever, in very different ways. Even in grown-up democracies here in Europe, there are disturbing tendencies how fast freedom of free speech and of media can be challenged by those who do not like the concept of independent and critical media work. If you threat a journalist, if you beat a journalist, if you jail a journalist, if you kill a journalist, you silence voices and you break the flow of information. Free flow of information, however, is the backbone of every reasonable citizenship. This very fact makes reporters to targets. And that's why we at the International Press Institute stand up to defend press freedom since our organization has been founded in October 1950 at Columbia University in New York. For any journalist who is imprisoned, killed, silenced in any way, the biggest fear is to be forgotten. If the world forgets, it becomes easy to silence journalists. If we forgot them, the hardship they suffered to promote the public interest through good journalism becomes entirely meaningless. The least we can do is to ensure they are not forgotten, because they are the people who make an organization like us, IPI. Those who motivate our community to aspire to good journalism, a journalism that strengthens our democratic principles and values, even in those corners of the world where they are constantly being clamped down. A journalism that offers information that people need to build their opinions and be empowered. This is the spirit of IPI and the belief that many of our members share, that in spite of personal disagreement or commercial competition, in spite of the individualism that characterizes journalists as a group, whenever we need to uphold the values and the rights that support the profession, then it's worth joining hands and standing in solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, that's why we are gathering here in Geneva. That's why it is worth to be part of this family. In the name of my fellow board members and the whole crew of IPI, and certainly in the name of all those who are not allowed to be among us today, thank you for being here. Your presence counts. It makes a difference. I'm happy to pass now to Noel Curran, Director General of the European Broadcasting Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a few remarks. First, to say we're delighted to be partnering in this event and to congratulate everyone involved. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank Michael Muller, who is leaving his position shortly. Michael has been a fantastic champion of freedom of expression, partner with us on a number of events and a number of initiatives, as well as what he's done here. And he will be sadly missed, and we wish him well for the future, and thank you. In many ways, there could not be a more fitting location for this year's event. This city, Geneva, has long been at the forefront of international cooperation, diplomacy and humanitarian commitment. More than 37 international institutions, organisations, bodies and secretariats now have their bases here. Just as the United Nations was born as a body to promote peace and dialogue between nations, the EBU was established as an organisation to promote and protect the vital contribution public service media brings to society. We now have 117 member organisations in 56 countries in Europe and beyond. The founders of both our organisations were quick to recognise the critical role played by culture and media in protecting and fostering democracy. For the last 70 years, the media has played that role, more or less successfully across the world. But recently, the world we all work in has changed, and we find ourselves, as has been said, under attack on many fronts. We are also delighted to support this event because journalism matters. It matters to the public, and it matters to the EBU and to our members, now more than perhaps ever before. That's why our members operate 185 TV and radio services dedicated to news and current affairs. It's why our members offer on average 24 hours a day of TV news coverage across all their channels. It's why we at the EBU are continuing to invest in News Exchange, our user-generated content verification unit, our investigative journalism network, and a range of other initiatives that you'll hear more about tomorrow. We are also increasingly open to partnership within the public and private sectors. As the title of this Congress suggests, together we can build an alliance for independent media, helping engage our audiences in new ways so that they better understand the role of journalists in guarding the public interest. It is the duty of all of us in this room to showcase the role of professional journalism as a public good. Everything has changed since I was a journalist in the 90s, yet at the same time nothing has changed. We are here, as we always have been, to empower people, to give them a voice and help help them make informed decisions. Some people do not like that, and indeed some may fear it. In a world where it is all too easy to control and manipulate information that reaches people online, the role of professional journalism has never been more critical to society and to democracy. I look forward to 2 days of fruitful exchanges about how all of us in the industry, public and private, can work together to strengthen our democracies and to safeguard the critical role of the media. Welcome to you all and enjoy the debates.
We will hear from the Executive Director of IPI, Barbara Triunfi.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Müller, Mr. Coran, colleagues and friends, the IPI 69th World Congress here in Geneva is taking place at a difficult time for press freedom in particular. The foundations of democratic order in many societies, including those one thought to be immune to authoritarian tendencies, are being challenged. Around the world, attacks on the press are growing, and attempts to smear journalists and enemies of the people are ever more often. And this greatly challenges journalists' most valuable goods, which is their trust and credibility. IPI was born almost 7 decades ago as the global network of those editors, journalists and media executives who believe that only independent, quality, public interest journalism deserves this name, and that the fight for this journalism to be able to exist needs to be a global one. I just would like to thank Mr. Michael Müller and Noel Coran for partnering with IPI in this IPI Congress, and mostly for opening their houses to us. But I also would like to thank IPI members and everybody else who is here with us today for traveling often many miles to join the IPI World Congress and show your support and your dedication to those values that we all hold dear. Throughout the year, the IPI staff in Vienna reaches out to many of you to express our support for your work whenever your rights and your freedoms are violated. And together with you, we develop strategies to counter these violations. We reach out to you when one of our colleagues somewhere in the world is facing danger and harassment, and we know that your voice will make a difference. To all of you who are here with us today, and all IPI members across the globe, I would like to express my immense gratitude. I hope you're all aware that IPI would not exist without you, and most importantly, the global press freedom landscape would be greatly weakened without the many battles that you are prepared to fight every day, and you often win. My final thanks goes to a person without whom the Congress in Geneva would not have been possible, Ken McQuarrie, Director of Nations and Regions at the BBC. Throughout his work and dedication to IPI and the EBU as well, Ken has been the driving force behind a strong partnership between these two organizations, which has resulted in this Congress. I hope and trust that this represents only the beginning of a strong alliance, and as we share the same values, the same vision, and the same fights. Ken, unfortunately, cannot be with us today, but I am very honored to welcome BBC Director of Editorial Policy and IPI Executive Board member David Jordan for some opening remarks on his behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Müller, Mr. Curran, delegates and friends, we must all be especially grateful for the generous way in which the EBU responded to the suggestion that we should combine in Geneva on the occasion of the IPI's annual World Congress. And the United Nations in particular was quick to respond to a request for its involvement, and we thank you both for that. This has enabled this Congress to be put together in record time by Barbara's superb team in Vienna. As you've just heard, this speech was to be given by Ken McQuarrie, the BBC's Director of Nations and Regions and a long-standing member of the IPI board. but he's had to remain in the UK following the sudden illness and unexpected death of his elder brother. There was a particularly good reason for Kenny to be here speaking to you on this occasion. As has just been made clear, Kenny has played an important role on behalf of the BBC in both the IPI and the EBU, and it was his suggestion that the two organisations should come together in Geneva for this Congress. So it's particularly sad that he cannot be here today to see the idea bear fruit, but he sends his best wishes to this Congress and will undoubtedly be present for many more. In an age of political upheaval and rising populism, intolerance to dissenting views is growing across the globe, and anti-press rhetoric in many countries and on every continent seems to have become the new normal. We've heard already of the deadly effects this can have for journalism. In such an age, the work of the IPI and of our partners for this event, the European Broadcasting Union, has never been more crucial. At a time when facts are so often a plaything of the powerful, manipulated and corrupted to fit the agendas of those who seek to suppress the truth, the role of quality journalism and of the agencies which seek to protect and nurture it has never been more important. The BBC is committed to both organisations and to what they stand for. Kenny Macquarie has represented the BBC as a board member on both the IPI and the EBU. The BBC has always been a core member of the EBU, and from the beginning of this year, the BBC's Director General became its president. The BBC knows from first-hand experience the difference both of these organisations can make, and do make, to the journalists they support and to the audiences they serve. This conference offers an opportunity for the world's print and broadcast journalists to discuss the challenges which they, individually and collectively, face today. It provides an opportunity for discourse and discussion on how best our journalism can reflect and reinforce the values that underpin democratic society. None of us here today should doubt the appetite that exists amongst those audiences for high-quality, reliable, trusted journalism. In January, the Edelman Trust Barometer, the annual Global Trust Survey, revealed that while trust in the media overall remains low, there's been a sharp decline in trust in social media. Whereas trust in traditional media, the report suggests, is at its highest recorded level, particularly in developed world markets. That tells me, first and foremost, that trusted, authoritative, courageous journalism is both valued and much sought after. It's a valuable commodity whose value is increasing. And it tells me that journalism's contribution to public discourse, to knowledge acquisition and sharing, in short, to the public good, is recognised and prized. On the other side of the fence, the report notes that 73% of its respondents were worried about false information, so-called fake news, being weaponised, being used not to inform but deliberately to manipulate, to distort and misinform. That should be a cue for us all. As Tony Hall, the BBC's Director General and the President of the UBU, said in a speech to the Society of Editors earlier this year, we cannot allow the fake to drive out the fair. Each and every one of us today has a responsibility, one that I know we all take seriously, to work together to combat fake news, to deliver free and independent journalism that helps make sense of the world around us. That's a central part of the reason for our gathering in Geneva here this week. We at the BBC look forward to contributing to its success. Thank you.